All right, so it is time. So this is the Infinite Game. I generally talk about investments, from alternative investments to traditional stocks, real estate, bonds, things such as that. Here's the big thing. So basically, I'm going to be talking about really ranking the top sports cards to buy when it comes to specific types. So basically, I'm talking about like whether baseball, what does baseball rank compared to basketball, compared to UFC, compared to hockey? Like, how does that? And I'm going to tell you how I got this, or what people invested in was baseball cards. So when people normally think about sports cards, they think about baseball cards. But now things are changing because baseball isn't the most popular sport anymore. The Really, when you want to look at sports cards to invest in and what you want to put your money in, you really need to look at the most popular sports. And the most popular sports are most likely going to have the most popular athletes in general. So you really want to be looking at the top 10 most popular sports. So there's two different things: popularity of sport, but also how long people have been collecting those cards. So cards is a traditionally an American thing over any other thing. The rest of the world will assimilate, get into cards and probably stickers as well, but really cards is the main focus as far as what people collect, and then stickers. So baseball is still actually number one despite what everyone thinks, as of right now. Matter of fact, I'm just going to go into this. The most popular sports in the world is number one is soccer. Number two is cricket. There's no cards for cricket that I know of, or not that many. Cricket is really a British sport and a Indian sport, and maybe a few countries in Africa. Basically, a lot of countries that Britain colonized, cricket is really big. Soccer has about 4 billion fans. Cricket has about 2.5 billion. Whenever cars become big, then I do think that we may see something different. Next is field hockey. So not ice hockey, field hockey is 2 billion. Same, no cars for this as well, or not that many. A lot of very popular field hockey athletes, but there's no one really cares in America. And right now, America is the biggest interest group when it comes to cards, and then is Europe, and then some of the Asian countries like China. But I think Europe is more interested in like stickers than cards, and then Asia, I think it's a mix. But next, tennis, 1 billion. Then it gets kind of tricky because I would say basketball with a little bit over 900 million. And then volleyball, 900 million. Table tennis, 875 million. Baseball with 500 million. Rugby with 475 million. And then golf with 450 million. And then you have American football, which is around 800 to 900 million as well. So those are really the sports that people should be looking at. And then Formula One has about 433 million. And then also MMA, so this includes UFC and other types of other MMA companies, 451 million. So really, if it's a sport and it's not in these, it's probably a waste of money, unless it's someone who's iconic like Usain Bolt. Track and field is really huge around the world, but people really aren't going to be buying anyone unless you're like the most notable person, which is Usain Bolt. He's the most famous, most notable, and one of the greatest runners ever. So his cars, people should be buying. He's a cultural icon. Simone Biles. But other gymnasts, it doesn't matter. Michael Phelps, but other swimmers don't matter, right? So Shaun White, but other snowboarders and skaters don't matter. Tony Hawk, but other skateboarders don't matter, right? So that's the way it works. So you're gonna have people who are in other sports that are gonna be people are gonna be investing in, but it's really that because they're the GOATs and they've been so dominant, that and they just become popular mainstream. However, my ranking for the top sports cars to invest, or top section of sports cars to invest in, I think still is baseball, but it's going to be surpassed by basketball and I think eventually soccer. But baseball, the popularity is waning and is dying in a sense. With the younger generation, it's just less younger people are getting in. But the strength of baseball is really the vintage market. Yeah, there's some young people getting into baseball, but the vintage market is the thing that keeps baseball strong, and it steadily goes up. And it's very mature, very safe, basically guaranteed that money is going to go up. But I think the real number one to be is going to be basketball. So basketball, the strength is modern, but vintage has really gotten some shine. I think some people like Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain are still a little too cheap, but I think that's going to change. But basketball, despite the correction, basketball, I would say, is number one. Number two, I would really say baseball. Number three, I would say modern. I would say football, and I think the strength is modern. People really don't care about vintage as much. If they do buy vintage, it's going to be quarterbacks, maybe some running backs, and maybe a few wide receivers. But the wide receivers and the running backs really are going to be top 3 all time, bare minimum top 5. It's really the quarterbacks, and really people care more about Tom Brady and just current quarterbacks now. Fourth, I think it's going to eventually change. I think it's going to be soccer and basketball in the top 2. But fourth is soccer. It's modern stuff, but mostly Mbappe, Messi, and Ronaldo. And people are starting to get into Pele, Beckham, and Maradona. Still a long way to grow, but I think long term, we're going to get your money at definitely soccer. Next, as far as stabilization of right now, I would say hockey. Hockey's more well known. I'm going to be honest with you, unless you're buying McDavid, I think it's Connor McDavid, and I guess he's like the Luka of hockey. You're probably going to be wasting your money on hockey, unless you're buying Wayne Gretzky, because he's such a big cultural icon. Hockey in general is not that popular. Next is tennis. I think tennis is a good investment in the long run, but I think it's really just, for women, is really Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka, and then maybe it'll be Coco, and I think Venus Williams is very underrated, but I don't think people are going to invest in her like that. And then Maria Sharapova, but I don't think many people are going to invest in her either. Next, I would say but also for tennis, Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, but I think whoever's third, people really won't be buying them. I think most people are going to be buying the number 1 guy, maybe the number 2 guy. But I think it's going to be Novak Djokovic, and then Federer is going to be third behind Nadal. So I think those will have a place, but I think Djokovic, especially with his low pop count, is going to take over. And then that's the other thing to keep in mind. Vintage baseball, super low pop count, but modern baseball is ridiculous pop count. Basketball, vintage, super low. Modern, ridiculous high, especially ultra modern. Football, ultra modern, really has a ridiculous pop count. Everything else is very small. Soccer, everything except ultra modern is starting to have a high pop count. Hockey, not much hockey, period. Tennis, not much tennis, period. Next is UFC. UFC is a fastest growing international sport. I think it's going to have a big place. Next is golf. Really, the main driver of golf is Tiger Woods. There are other people, but really people are buying Tiger Woods, and everyone else. No one else I would necessarily say is a cultural icon. Maybe good at golf, but not cultural icon. Next, Formula One. Really, people are just buying it because Lewis Hamilton. And then boxing, the main players is Floyd, Ali, and Tyson. So here's the thing. Unless you're buying, you're only focusing on 1 to 3 people. Boxing, Formula One, golf, I'll say hockey, you're probably wasting your time. Long term, you're wasting your time. Unless they're going to be the top one in their sport or the most famous person in their sport, it doesn't matter. UFC is super early, and I think a lot of guys who are big names now won't be big names 20, 30, 40 years from now. So I think good short-term flip and stuff like that, but unless you're buying the hobby box of 2009, you're probably... Now, if you enjoy the sport and it helps you and you like following it anyway, cool, do that. And it's fun for you, do that. But if you're trying to be an investment, UFC is kind of like basketball in the 70s. So if you're buying all the best NBA stars in the 70s, you may be paying premium because 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, they will not matter. But I think UFC is where basketball was in the sports card boom in the 80s. Not that much stuff. Now they're starting to print more stuff and make more stuff. And I think it's going to be probably top 5 sports in the world eventually. I don't know when, because UFC started in 1993. NBA basketball started in 1948. Difference in years. So keep that in mind. So, I mean, if I were to invest, I would say baseball, basketball, football, tennis, and UFC as long-term players. But football, it may still just be quarterbacks. So those are the ones I would say. But I think 20 years from now, you're going to have basketball is probably going to be on top. Number 2 would probably be soccer. Number 3, I would say football. Number 4, I would say UFC. Number 5, I would say baseball. Yeah. And here's a warning, because people are going to be hyping up these sports. Hockey, tennis, UFC, golf, Formula One, and boxing. All right. Some of these going to help because there's not as much pop count, but you're going to see large swings in these because people don't really have such an affinity for these kind of things, and a lot of the markets are really new. So once the next big thing comes, and they're trying to actually want to buy basketball or soccer, they're going to flip that stuff to buy basketball. Like, people are going to flip Conor McGregor to buy LeBron, or flip Conor McGregor to buy, Tom Brady or somebody. So definitely keep that in mind. So that's what my ranking is, and that's what I've seen, and that's what people are talking about. Soccer is kind of on the fringe. That's going to enter the thing with, baseball and basketball and football. But honestly, baseball used to be king, basketball is now king, and then soccer and football are just getting into relevancy. And then there's still going to be a long way to go for hockey and tennis and UFC before they really become where baseball, basketball, of American football and soccer, and American football are. So yeah, please comment, like, and subscribe, and please share with as many people as possible. I'm trying to reach as many people. And I'm going to be coming out with more content on UFC cards, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and also talk about the Nationals as well. So thanks, and thanks for watching.